What's good, grassroots world, and welcome to the Flagrant 2 podcast. I'm your host, Chris Logan, along with my co-host,
Coach Barber here.
Yo, Coach, what's up, man?
Not much, man. Just watching a lot of basketball lately. Got to see some stuff this weekend, and then we went to another scrimmage. You and I went to another scrimmage, so we're just watching a lot of basketball. Went to a UCO game last night, so just watching a lot of basketball and ready to talk about it. So, yeah.
No, I think after we did our season preview, we kind of hit a lot of teams, and I think over the last week, what it did was it allowed us to really get in depth even more and break down some of these other teams we haven't seen and some of the guys we talked about and see some of their new roles now. Scrimmage season has been crazy this year. I don't really ever remember it being this, this amount of them. But for a basketball fan and the people that are listening to this, it's heaven for basketball people. So
100% agree with that. Edmond North, shout out to Edmond North on putting that together. That was fantastic. I mean, everybody gets the chance to see each other, kind of look and see what you're up against for the year. I know everybody's kind of keeping their cards close to their vests as far as what they're going to do offensively, all those sorts of things, understand. But it is good to see the players and be able to see, who's done the work, who's put the work in the gym and who's improving. And then I think to your point, these role players coming in, these younger underclassmen coming in, how are they going to contribute to the overall success of the team? So it's exciting, and obviously we're going to break some of that down, get into the teams and players, and talk about it a bit. So, yeah, this is going to be a good episode. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, this past Saturday at Solid Rock, just to hit on what you were talking about, the East West Showdown, to me, is one of my favorite events as far as scrimmages. It's got the AAU vibe to it, where we got games on all four courts, the who's who of basketball people from the state of Oklahoma.
All there.
Everybody was under one roof. If you weren't there, you should be, and next year you better get there. Everybody was there to see some marquee matchups. Some teams kind of held some of the guys out, and a little strategizing going on there. Gamesmanship.
There you go. There you go.
And I don't, I'm not mad at it because I understand why. But also we saw some, teams that kind of surprised us. Teams we had picked to be pretty good, but they went from maybe pretty good to contender. And maybe that's our instant reaction or overreaction, but that's what we're going to do here anyways, is try to, give you the things that we've seen and hopefully they turn out the way they do or they don't. But either way, we're going to talk about it. And I think we can jump right into it. Just right off the bat, give me some of the things that stood out to you the most at Solid Rock this last Saturday.
So I'll start off right away with teams. In terms of the teams, Tulsa Union stuck out to me big time this weekend.
And we're on the same page with that.
Tulsa Union, they looked really, really good. And I would say in terms of popping into my top five, I got to put them in there. 6A, on the east side, shout out to them. They were ready to play. They point guard play was good. You had, bigs played really, really good, and then you have, guys coming off the bench that are going to get good minutes that are going to impact the game.
Yeah.
And some of those players could start on, other teams.
Yep.
A lot of the good teams could start. So Tulsa Union, I like the sets they run too. They ran some nice sets. I know they're not showing everything, which a lot of these teams aren't. But Tulsa Union, in terms of on the east side, to me, was the biggest. They impressed me the most.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. Going into it, we talked about them in the last preview episode about their front line being so big, and that they are going to cause some mismatch nightmares and some problems for teams, but. What maybe we didn't account for was their guard play was exceptional this weekend.
It was,
and we'll talk about some of these guys. And the point guard that starts it out is 2025 Corbin Gunn.
Yes,
he was as quick as they come, explosive, making great reads, and just getting into the paint and dumping it off to a big guy or kicking it out for a three. he was phenomenal this weekend. So I think he's one of the guys to me that was the unsung hero for them this week. And, specifically when talking about their matchup against Edmond North, because that's the litmus test that everybody's going to compare.
Yeah.
That's the defending back-to-back champ. That's who everybody's mostly got picked to win this season. Yeah. So the way that they played them now, some will say, hey, it's just a scrimmage.
Yep.
And it was. But there was things that translate into the regular season that we saw there, and they look to be a definite formidable opponent for 100%. Edmond North going forward.
Yeah, he looked really good. Off the bounce, he was quick. He could get in the paint. He could make plays. He saw the floor. He's a pass-first guard. He plays a true point guard position. I was, as far as players that I would say, he's an underclassman, right? Or he's now a junior now, so now he's a junior. But I would say he made an impact. There were a lot of guard play that I noticed this weekend. We'll get into that more in depth in terms of talking about the players individually, but just in terms of talking about teams, he did a great job of running the team, and somebody that we're starting to hear more about on social media. He was somebody that stuck out in terms of their performance. Did a really good job, really, really good job.
And then also the wing 6'4" Dalen Fuller, who has played on the EYBL and has always been known for just one of the most electrifying dunkers in the state. I mean, athleticism through the roof, high major athleticism. A lot of times what I think has held him back is some, say, I want to see him shoot it from the perimeter. Well, that's exactly what he did on Saturday. He lit that thing up from every level, mid-range pull-ups, three-point shooting. I mean, when he does that, his stock is skyrocketing right now. Like he's got to do it consistently this his senior year. He's got to do that for Union. But if he does, he's got a chance. And I know you saw him and he looked really well. What'd you think?
Yeah, no, I liked it. What I saw from him this weekend that I really, really liked, and a lot of times a lot of kids can shoot off the catch, right? Their feet are set, they can catch and shoot. Because a lot of guys, they practice shooting threes. Anytime you see guys or teams, practicing before a game, they're shooting three-pointers and they're just catching and shooting. So a lot of guys practice that. But what I saw from him this weekend is shooting off the bounce, which I really liked. He would come off that three-point line, shoot off the bounce of one or two dribbles. Yep. And if he can do that consistently, he's already really athletic that you just talked about. I think he's a matchup problem for anybody he plays against.
Absolutely.
And so I liked what I saw from him. He's a guy that. A lot of teams are going to want. So there's no doubt. He can be consistent.
And he's such a left-handed dominant player that the more he goes right too, and it opens up that side of the floor, it just makes him that much better. So those pull-ups and all that, where people have to now get out there and close out. Well, guess what? He's got that quick twitch, and he's going to blow by you, and that's when he's going to throw one of those monster dunks down on you. So Dalen Fuller, Corbin Gunn, stock risers in the front court, and I definitely got to talk about the back court, because this kid to me in the 2026 class has moved up, and it will be reflected because I'm going to drop a 2026 ranking like in the next week to update it, because I have to, because this kid has moved so far up on my list, and that's 2026 Miles Flemings, the big-bodied 6'8", 6'9", he might be now. Looked exceptional out there. He was unstoppable in the post, but can also step out and has a soft touch and can knock down the three ball.
Yeah, I thought him coming off the bench, obviously a top sophomore. I see him, making big strides there. Being able to play that, stretch 4-5 spot, getting some good minutes there. I mean, a kid like him can be a difference maker in that team. And I don't know what the lineups are going to look like. But if he comes off the bench, he can be a huge impact player there. Or if he starts, it doesn't matter. I mean, it depends on the lineups, and I don't know how coach is gonna play that. But he's one of the top sophomores I've got in my thought process. After this weekend, he looked really, really solid. And the thing with him that I really like is that he plays a very defined. He can play a lot of roles, but he'll do what you need him to do. Absolutely. And I think that's the kind of player that you need to win championship type basketball games.
That's also the kind of player that college coaches will be looking at. This kid can play different roles, but he plays his role, and he knows exactly what he needs to do to stay on the floor. He was ultra productive this weekend. Big E, Eric Madrid was really good down there, space eating, getting some finishes around the rim.
Played the whole game too.
Yeah, never came out. I mean,
getting up and down.
Good, good job to Big E working on his body and really, making strides there. Union was definitely a winner. Stock rising on them. And another thing is that with guys like Miles, if they can play Edmond North and get Warlick or Potts into foul trouble, I mean, that really kind of, changes the game flow. So, they were just a team, like I said, instant reaction, could call it an overreaction, whatever you want, but we know what we saw, and I know what a lot of other people saw there. They were definitely a formidable opponent going forward. So what's the next team you saw that just kind of jumped out to you?
Let's jump to the west side. I'll say this. I'll jump to the west side, and I'll go 5A here, but I'm going to tell you, Crossings, I felt like looked fantastic. I watched their first game in the morning on Saturday, and they look like they could have beat anybody they played. I mean, they were showing mid-season form, it looked like to me, in terms of ball movement and the sets and the things they were able to do. They're on another level right now. And I know Carl Albert, we had our picks. And I'm going to stick with what I said.
Yeah.
But they looked, as far as who I saw this weekend on the West Side, Crossings to me was off the charts good.
And we had our caveats of why Crossings, we might pick them in that matchup if certain things happened. Yep. Well, a lot of those certain things happened this weekend when we watched them. I know the first game I watched against Choctaw, and you said it, the ball movement was elite. I mean, it was elite level ball movement, and they got the things out that I said. Phoenix Woodson was great, and he didn't have to score a lot. He just dominated the defensive boards. He made his paint presence was noticed when someone went in there. He was deterring shots, getting rebounds, pick and pop variety from the offensive side. He was knocking down threes. When Phoenix looks like that, Crossings is going to be one of the toughest outs in the state, regardless of class, regardless of that. And I want to get into a couple of their other guys because obviously we've hit on Cal Furnish multiple times, and he was exceptional.
Yep,
always is. Was knocking down shots, setting up guys. But I was really impressed, and I mentioned him in one of the other pods. Matt Goodell was great for them from the perimeter. I mean, he hit a number of threes, but he keeps the pressure on, and he plays downhill a lot, and he just gives them that other guy. I mean, he
a dimension that maybe it makes them multi-dimensional in terms of how they get to the bucket or score.
Absolutely. Love his game. And then, of course, Cam Parker, the other big. We've hit on him before, too. He just does everything so well. Shoots it, big body, fights so hard down in the paint. So they were another one of the teams trending up after the East West Showdown that I saw. And we'll jump right into another team that I liked was Booker T. Washington, and that's another 5A team.
Yep.
We mentioned them a few times, but their guard-centric offense is fun to watch. It's a fun style of play, and they do things a little differently, and they're going to make you play their style. And I thought that 2027, and he might be a top kid in the one or two in that class was Jock Mitchell, and he's got the body of a grown man. I mean, he's physically all there, and he just did really well at finishing at the rim. Hopefully he's okay. I know he went on a big breakaway dunk, and he kind of come down and hurt his wrist. Hopefully Jock's all right because he's definitely one of the top freshmen in the state, and a lot of people want to see him. But there is a kid that I seen in Mason Matulus and he's about a 6'3", long, skinny shooter, but got some pop in his game, and he really, had some coaches on and on about him on the sidelines, and I like what I seen from him for a sophomore. He fits well with what they do. He stood out and had a great day.
They won their first matchup against Westmore.
Yes,
it was a close game, but they pulled that one out. I talked to some of the players afterwards. Yeah,
I mean, they got a lot of underclassmen, and the guys that they do have that are juniors. I'm not even sure. I'm trying to think. I'm not even sure they have a senior on the roster right now, Booker T.
No, they were really young. I got to talking to a couple of the players afterwards, asked them how they did, because I was going back and forth. I asked how they finished up.
Yeah.
And they said they won, but then I had some conversations with them. Yeah, it's packed full of guards. I mean, they're up and down, and you're right. They'll dictate a tempo. Yeah. And style of play is always about, if you can dictate the tempo and style of play, you win basketball games. So I think they're definitely somebody on the east side that you're going to have to keep an eye on, especially in 5A.
Yeah, and I thought Barron Harris, BJ Harris, I think his big athletic body, he does so much defensively for them that you can put him on a much bigger player and he can hold his own because of his strength and quickness. So I really loved what he showed. Trey Bruner, he looked really good. A small guard, super explosive. Mm-hmm. Kid that you just microwave guy. You just got to keep track of where those guards are at all times. They play so fast, and it's just an exciting brand of basketball. So that's another team. Is someone else just jumping out? You just jump on in there.
I watched Deer Creek. I watched a little bit of Deer Creek this weekend. Again, you've mentioned this on the last podcast, and I'm just going to reiterate it. Deering is going to be so instrumental in terms of how they perform this year. The guard play is really good. They've got a lot of talent in the guard play. But I think Deering, his athleticism and him staying healthy and him being able to impact them offensively and defensively, maybe even more defensively, to help slow down other teams in their offenses. If he can do that, they've got a chance to be really good. But that's going to be a challenge. When you look at 6A and you look at the bigs in 6A, that's not a small task because we're talking about Union, we're talking about Edmond North, we're talking about even Norman.
Owasso.
We're talking big. Yeah, Owasso. Yeah, and I haven't gotten to them yet. That'll be another one we talk about here in a minute. But that's a challenge. And when I get to see it, when you watch a couple teams, and we went to the Southmore scrimmage earlier before the East West Showdown or whatever, when you see 2 or 3 teams, it doesn't stick out to you. But when you see all those teams and you see all the size with all those teams, you realize what you're really looking at. I mean, it's all the teams that were there in terms of the larger classes.
Yeah,
they were there.
Yep.
And so when I look at that, I'm like, that there's a reality that comes to this. So, staying healthy and being prepared and bringing it every time you come out, he's going to have to be big for them. And they've got some other guys too. But I think just athleticism-wise, he's the guy that really has the ability and potential to answer the bell.
Well, and speaking of Deer Creek, I know I didn't watch them mainly the other day at Solid Rock, but I just came from a scrimmage of theirs this morning.
Yeah, that's right.
Against Emmett Santa Fe. And what I liked about that was they actually played a full game. That wasn't just a half and then restarted. They played the full 4 quarters. And I posted about it, but it was a tale of 2 halves. Santa Fe just kind of dominated the first half defensively. They were locked in, and they were just gritty, and that's how they're coached, and that's how they play, and they do it, as a group. They have to lock in. They're not big, but they're another team that plays feisty. They get up under you, they pester you, they get you upset, they make you want, maybe want to get into some skirmishes with them. But that's how they play. But Deer Creek in the second half went to their big guys, and Jeremiah Deering, John Proby, Kai Kugel, they just took it upon themselves and said, all right, enough of this, and they just controlled the paint. And when Deer Creek can do that, they are very good.
Yep.
And so what I saw from them in the second half of today's scrimmage is what we hope to see from them going forward, because guard play-wise, Clyde Davis Jr. was exceptional. Once he gets going, he's almost impossible to stay in
He's
front
like
of.
a microwave, and when he gets his mind going, and I think a lot of times with him, if you motivate him, if something sparks him and you motivate him, then he's one of those microwave type scorers. The thing with him sometimes is he's got to make sure that he plays within himself and he's getting his other teammates involved along with scoring the basketball.
Yeah, and it was good to see Hudson Litzenmeyer back today, because he's going to be one of their staple guys. He's played a lot of basketball.
Shoots the basketball well.
Shoots it. Second half, he was lights out. Helped spur a comeback for them. He was really good. And Jaden Narte was really good. Like, he doesn't have to score. Jaden Narte just he's a traditional point guard, and he just plays so fast. And his on-ball defense is really good. Yep. When he's hounding you three-quarters court, full court pressure.
Making you work.
Deer Creek is really good. Yeah. They need that from him. And he's also a good playmaker. He made some good plays today.
They got a lot of good pieces to that team. And it's just, in terms of depth, and they've got some depth as well.
Yeah.
So I that's one thing I really like about them. It's all about maturity, and then, maybe some of the kids coming up and how they perform and add to the mix. So.
Yeah, and then since we're talking about that game, Santa Fe has some guys that maybe not a lot of people know about. And Zayden Best, who I've mentioned him before, I really like his game. I mean, I think he had 15 points in the first half. He was just lights out. Did some really good things off the dribble. Just a smart, heady player, change of pace type kid. Really like him. Nick Rhodes gave some 3-point shooting. And then they got some guys kind of that go under, that are kind of unknown. And I thought Jacob Gooden, which is a 2025 kid, was really good for them today. He did some stuff out on the perimeter. He's a nice, solid sized kid, about 6'3"-ish, but a solid body, athletic. But had some great footwork in the post, and really did some good moves on some guys that were a lot bigger than him. I thought he was kind of an X factor for them in that first half today. So they've got some guys, and they have a big in Tiki Cowens. He just needs to get some more, more experience and just some more minutes. He can provide some defensive things for them that no one else on their team quite has. So he's just long and active. And I know you saw him this weekend and kind of liked him too as well.
Yeah, 100%. I liked him. There are a number of players in terms of transitioning, and I liked him a lot. Moving on to some other teams, one of the things I want to give a shout out to. In talking about on the west side is obviously we talk about Edmond North, and I want to say, obviously I still think they're the odds-on favorite. But there's a couple things I want to kind of throw out there in terms of teams. Dontrell Yearby played amazing basketball.
Lights out.
I mean, he was shooting the basketball extremely well. And if he's shooting the basketball well and Keontae's, controlling everything, which he did, that they're hard to beat. I mean, it's just, when I look at that team that I saw this weekend, everybody talks about T.O. leaving, and obviously T.O.'s, I think the biggest impact with T.O. is just the athleticism and defense that he plays, because he can literally shut down your best player on another team. But I think Edmond North has a chance to be better offensively than they were last year, just because Keontae controls the tempo of the game. And he gets the guys involved, and if those guys are clicking on all cylinders, it's almost impossible to beat him. I mean, it just, with his confidence, knowing when to stay and when to, go, and then getting Yearby involved, and obviously with Warlick and all the guys they have. I mean, they're just loaded, all the way. And then they've got guys off the bench. You got size off the bench too. So it's, Logan Knoll coming in. You've got all these kids coming in off the bench that are really good players and would start for most other teams, by the way.
Oh, yeah. That was a conversation that was had the last couple of weeks around the basketball community was, you're going to wait your turn if you go there.
Yeah.
Because their second unit could play with a lot of first, and they do.
Correct.
North plays their second unit against starting varsity teams.
They're going to be playing probably a lot of these games this year. Their second team is going to be finishing the game for him.
Getting some minutes, yeah.
If that tells you anything.
And I want to double down when Dontrell Yearby is hitting shots like he did. It's just what you said. Their inside game is so strong, and Tramble does what he does. I mean, he's just one of the more well-rounded point guards out there. I talked about I love his back-to-the-basket game. I am a sucker for that. That's just the way I like to play. Mm-hmm. It's some of the older point guards used to play like that. They can kick it out of there. They get a small guard on them. They post them up, spin off of it, little hook shots. I love point guards that play in the post. We all have the different attributes we like in guards or forwards that we associate with what we think is good. And I love a back-to-the-basket point guard. Just call me a sucker for that.
Keontae is one of the best point guards in the state, and I don't care what class you're talking about. We talk about Cal a lot, and we talk about that one kid that going to play for OU next year out of Dale. All Dylan. Not Dylan, but Dayton. Rather,
yep.
Sorry, Dayton. But we talk about these kids, and a lot of people know who they are. The highlights. Dayton's highlight. Beginning the season with a monster dunk. I mean, these guys are amazing players. But Keontae is on that level. He's his basketball IQ and understanding how to play the game is next level. He's a big time college player, and coaches need to understand. I mean, I know coaches understand that, and I hope that they do. If they don't, they need to watch the kid a little more closely. Just a top notch point guard.
Yep, and that'll transition us into a team that they played that. The big matchup of the week that everybody wanted to see, which was Owasso versus Edmond North. And I know that Jalen Montanati did not play this weekend, and I know we all wanted to see it, but Jalen will be back soon enough, and I know he's ready to get going. I talked to him a little bit this weekend, and he is primed and ready for a monster season. But they're also down. They're one of their starting centers out, so they had a couple guys out. So, but who they brought and what they did was impressive. They beat Edmond North in one of the first. They basically played two halves and started the score over after one, which I'm not for that format personally. Like, I'd rather just play the whole game if you're going to do it and keep the score ongoing to the next one. I'd rather see that. That'd be my
because it's a real game.
That would be my only adjustment for next year when they do it. And like I said, props to Edmond North because they did a hell of a job with that.
It was a great tournament.
So I love that. But where it all started with Owasso with me was Jax Kerr, because Jax Kerr was super engaged in the paint, and I know that's what his coach, Brian Montanati is wanting from him, and what Owasso needs from him, because he absolutely can shoot from the 3-point line, and he can absolutely do some things out on the perimeter.
Yeah.
But at 6'10", when he's able to get down low, bang, get rebounds, just get some putbacks, some simple, quick hook shot baskets, just plays tough down low, Owasso becomes almost unbeatable.
Well, and this is one thing I want to say about it, because, and I know I tend to, you talk about when you put pressure on a kid, it turns to a diamond, right? And I think that I typically, my style isn't usually that way. But I'm going to make a statement here while on the podcast here, so you heard it here first. Jax Kerr is the biggest. How he plays is going to have the biggest impact in the state of Oklahoma this year in terms of how they finish.
No.
To me, you know what you're going to get with a lot of players, but if Jax Kerr can play and he continue to improve, not only how he played this weekend, but improve upon that, I don't know that anybody's going to beat them.
Yep.
And I've been saying, obviously, Edmond North is the favorite.
Yep.
But that kid can dominate a game. And then if you have Montanati doing what he does and the other kids kicking in on that team, I will say there's a couple things I'll come back to on that team. But Jax Kerr, I'm not trying to put too much pressure on you, man, but if you come in and play big and do the things you did this weekend and continue to improve upon that, you're going to win. You're going to win state title. I mean, that's out there. So just throwing it out there. Take it for what it's worth.
Well, and twofold, if he does that, his recruiting is going to explode.
100% agree.
So I think that goes hand in hand with those two things, is that Owasso's success and his success as a recruit can be hand in hand. Yep. And I think he's in the right place, and I think he's with the right coach that's going to get it out of him.
100% agree, because you got a coach that understands what it's going to take and is going to be preaching that and filling you up every practice, talking about what you need to do and soak that in like a sponge, because it's going to make you better, and work on those things. Because if you do, it pays off.
And I definitely think we saw some other good things. Also, they have a wing, and that's about 6'3", 6'4", Gabe Patterson. He was great off the dribble and just getting to slicing to the basket, cutting. he was excellent the other day, and he was a big part of what they did last season, which got them to the semifinals. They lose Brandon Mann, who played out of his mind last year. I mean, Brandon, if Jalen Montanati was MVP for them, he was 1B behind him, and the loss of him, that's going to have to be taken by Anson Harbaugh, their big center, Gabe Patterson, Jax Kerr. They're going to have to step up in those roles. And like we just said, if all that comes to fruition, Owasso is a versatile mismatch nightmare for any team in the state. And
talk to me a little bit about this. I totally agree with that. Talk to me about what your thoughts are in terms of their point guard play. I mean, what are your thoughts there with them?
Well, I mean, Bowden Williams is going to be the guy. I mean, he's got a lot of things that he does well. We talked about him defensively. Matter of fact, I really love that he's been working on his physical part of his body. He looks super strong. He looks strong. I mean,
he's grown and got stronger over the year for sure.
He was throwing people around, and I love that. So he's a kid that's just a heady kid, sniper shooter. He's going to be their guy, but they're going to rely on some of their youngsters, the backup guys, and Shake Milton's little brother, MJ Milton, and also guard play with Cohen Scott. Those are two guys that to me can be unsung heroes for Owasso because not a lot of people are talking about them. Both of them had some injury problems this summer. They're both back now, and I've seen glimpses in both of them where I'm just like, yeah, they got some stuff in them. So and obviously the bloodline for MJ, it's there because Shake is simply one of the better players that ever came from Oklahoma and just a stud all around, guy in general. So I think those two kids, what they can bring, it just ratchets it up. It's the two teams we talked about that are really deep, and the depth is what's going to take these teams far. I know I put out last night, and I haven't even posted it yet, but I did my Power 5 preseason teams in 2A through 6A. So I'll post that link here pretty soon. By the time this podcast comes out, it's probably already going to be out. But, like you said, Union earlier, I had to throw them in the top 5.
Yeah.
I mean, what I saw, they're in the top 5 with Owasso, with Edmond North. Choctaw was missing a lot of their guys, so it was very hard to get an eval on Choctaw. I need to see Jamon Valentine. I need to see Isaiah Taylor.
Yes.
I need to see Will Smith if he's going to play. I'm sure he's going to play. They're still playing. Will's still playing football right now for Choctaw. So those big athletic guys that they have are absolutely what they need, and they absolutely need the experience of Jamon Valentine. One thing I did see is Jordan Valentine, he's really filled out his frame. He's a good-looking prospect.
Yes, he is. He looks fantastic.
I really like him, and I think that he's got some stuff he could do this season to really elevate himself on the recruiting scene.
Oh yeah.
And with
his
that
body alone is
he's not just like a 6'6", he's a solid 6'6" kid.
Strong,
got the same we talked about it when we were watching, got the same lower body build as his brother. Really kind of an explosive type
does not play scared either. He does not play like an underclassman. The kid is going to impact games and be a player for them this year.
So I mean,
good
it was
stuff, man.
It was hard because we picked them early on as one of our contenders. It just that's the thing about scrimmages. We can't really go off of what I saw the other day because I know Choctaw is going to be one of the better teams. So I'm really interested to see how they get going when they get their full roster back.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take a side note here of a sponsorship. I want to talk a little bit about our sponsor, Logan Elite Basketball. Nate Logan of Logan Elite Basketball, training out of Destiny Christian High School in Del City, Oklahoma. He provides affordable group and individual training options every week. Logan Elite Training aims to help players develop their skill sets, basketball IQ, confidence, ultimately help them become more prepared for their current teams as well as the next level. And that's really what we're here about and why we're partnering with Nate, because it's all about helping these kids get to the next level. So Logan Elite currently trains some of the best high school, junior high players, including the number one player in Oklahoma. Everybody knows who that is. Visit LoganEliteBasketball.com or message him on Instagram at NateLogan_Logan Elite for more information on how to get signed up. shout out to Nate Logan. Does a great job. And players out there, I want to say a couple things. One, you've got to get training outside of practice. So if you're not doing individual training, Nate's somebody that you certainly want to check out and get involved with, because it'll take your game to the next level. And that's something that you have to do. If you want to get to the next level, you got to separate yourself, and that comes from work. There's no shortcuts to it. And the other thing I would say too, coming back into our conversation here, is this. Players, one of the things I noticed this weekend, and I see it on social media, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say this, talking directly to all the players here. Make sure you're doing yourself a solid. Measure yourself without your shoes on, and give your actual height to coaches. Because one, if you say that you're 6'4", and a coach shows up, and that coach is 6'2", and he knows exactly how tall he is, and you're an inch and a half shorter than him, he's automatically, if he were looking at you, he's going to say, one, he's not honest. That's not a good thing. And two, you're only shorting yourself when you say that you're bigger or taller than you are, and you're shorting yourself because you may be a good athlete. And if you say you're 6'4" and you're doing things that most 6'4" guys can do, and you're really 6 foot or 6'1", you're shorting your athleticism, or you're not selling that. So I say all this to say, being honest and upfront about your size is really important, because it allows the coaches to know where they can put you. And coaches are looking at you guys to figure out what positions that they're trying to fill. And the more honest you can be about your size and showing your skill set, and the video will show that on its own, it allows them to adequately put you in a place where you're going to fit in to their roster. And I want to say this. If you say you're 6'4" and you're really 6'1", and the coach comes out, he's going to see that first off. But let's just say they don't do a lot of, they don't check you out maybe as close, they give you an offer and you sign. Then you're a 6'1" player, and they're trying to put you into a 6'4" spot, right? That's not going to bode well for you coming off the bench or trying to get time when you're really not that size. Now, they'll do their homework. But what I'm getting at is, you want to find a good fit for where you belong, so put your honest-to-God height into your profile and go with that, because you're not going to fool coaches. You can fool them and get them there to see you, but when they get there to see you and you're not the same height as what your Instagram says or whatever, that's not a good sign. So do yourself a favor and make sure. I was checking that out over the weekend as well, because I know exactly how tall I am, and kids saying they're a certain height and they're really not. That's a red flag. So don't do that to yourself. Tell them how tall you really are. It's okay if you're 5'11" and you're not 6 foot tall. Put 5'11". That's all right, because guess what? We saw some kids this week that were guards. And I won't say how tall they really are, but they're literally hammering the ball down, and they're not even they're right at 6 foot, right?
Yeah, their head's above the rim.
That's ridiculous. I mean, that athleticism. So you're shortchanging your abilities. You don't have to say you're 3 inches taller than you are. Just play your game and tell the truth about what your size is. It'll pay off for you, I promise.
And I'll just throw in on that, for recruiting purposes, do it on your Twitter. Put your accurate height there, because the problem is we can pull up Max Prep rosters and there'll be one height there. We can pull up Twitter, there's another height there. We can go to your school's website and they've got a different. So you have 3 different heights. It gets confusing. So I would just say, on your Twitter, where most coaches are going nowadays for recruitment purposes, maybe the first time they ever reach out to you is going to be in a DM, or you're going to reach out to them. Have your height accurate on there for recruiting. It needs to be accurate, and it needs to be shown in your bio, description, whatever, Instagram, Twitter. Do it there, because these other pages that the 3 different heights are listed, like, those aren't updated enough frequently. I mean, me and Ernie were looking at the other day, Max Preps or something, and there's guys on those rosters.
On the rosters.
Yeah, they're like 3 years ago. So, first of all, that we could get into a whole nother thing about why we need to get updated rosters, because that helps immensely with scouting and media coverage. Yep. When it's hard to get a roster from a coach like that, if it was able just to be pulled up and it was accurate jersey numbers and heights, all that stuff matters in recruiting. So
Yep.
that's an episode for another day, but I absolutely agree that get your real height down there for recruiting purposes. You don't need to lie because honestly,
if you can play, you can play.
If you can play, and like you said, if you're 5'11", 6 foot, and have a 40-inch vertical, like that jumps off the page and stands out more than if you lie and say you're 6'3".
Yeah, and speaking of athleticism like that, I mean, just watching the kid this weekend, Jaden Hopkins this weekend, that dunk he posted on Twitter was just
vicious.
Oh my gosh, it was exciting. It was like, man, I wish I were young again. Just to have that ability, that was impressive. So Jaden, I talked a little bit to Jaden over the weekend, just chatting with him when he was on the sideline watching some games, and the kid is a good kid, and man, he's best athlete in the gym that I saw this weekend. And just, I mean, when you see that type of ability in transition, I'm just like that's impressive. So shout out to Jaden, well done, young man. So.
Yep, and I think back to why I said I'm going to do the update on the 26 ranking is because him and Miles to me have just jumped up immensely.
Yep.
I mean the athleticism that Hopkins plays with and the versatility that it creates for him on the defensive side, and really, not many people can stay in front of him.
Oh,
and as he's shown,
explosiveness, that's D1 explosiveness.
And I've had my conversations with some D1 coaches about him after this past summer. His coming out party really was at Buff's last event in July, and he really, really was on full showcase. And I know a lot of coaches, and he knows this, and his coaches know this, that we've talked about it. He is a D1 caliber player, so he needs to keep improving.
Yep.
That's really what he's got to do. Carl Albert. I talked about them last time.
Yep.
All their main guys to me looked really well. Shout out to Jaden Mott for getting committed to Northern Illinois, man. He's another D1 kid now the 2024 class can claim, and he's a heck of a kid, and he's just really done well. He's a kid that, like we said, he doesn't have to score. He defensively can change. Big impact player on the defensive end. Does some great things for them. So kudos to him, and proud of you, kid, for what you did. But
smart move, by the way. You got a good offer, you sign with it. I think that's a lot of other kids could take advice from that move.
Yeah, I love that. Went on a visit and signed while he was there. Love that. Just in this environment, if you got a D1 offer right now out there, you might want to take it.
Yep.
If you're not a top 150 kid nationally and you have any type of offer, really any kind of offer at this point, I mean, whether it be D2 or D1, but especially if you have a D1 offer on the table and everything is covered, you got to take that because you're waiting for something that may not be there in the end.
And then the other thing, too, as much basketball as these guys play, if you get injured, it changes the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
That can change it all.
And I know that the coaches, they'll offer those offers, and from the time that they make the offer, a lot of good coaches out there, they'll hold that offer, so that won't change necessarily, but it certainly changes the trajectory of you getting to play and how you come in and make a name for yourself at the next level. So, yeah.
And then we're just going to jump in. We only got a couple more teams that I wanted to, spotlight from the other day, and one of them was Norman, and I know you watched them as well.
Yep.
I thought I saw some really good things from Bo Billingsley. I mean, we talked about him in one of the last podcasts.
In his game,
Maturity in his game. He's picking up he's picked up some D2 offers. He just did a really good job of setting his guys up and just play smart. But Treshawn Combs-Pierce, what I liked from him this weekend was he was showing some playmaking ability.
Yeah.
He's always been an excellent shot blocker, weak side. He can do the on-ball wing defender. He's an exceptional D1 caliber athlete. But I saw him making some reads and hitting some guys with some nice passes that, to me, if that's a role he can play, and I know talking to his coach, Coach Cole, that he's going to get the chance to play the 1 through 5 this year.
Yeah,
and
he's going to have to,
and he will have to. I mean, but versatility wise, what I saw him doing from some of the guard spot was some exceptional stuff.
Yeah, last year or the year before, or last year actually, what I've noticed, and then you just hit on it. He didn't have that in his game last year, looking for teammates to get them the basketball, and I think him trusting his teammates will only make them a better team. Because he can score the basketball. He can play defense. He's got length. He's got all the tools.
Yep.
Right? But, does he trust his teammates? Can he, make that jump and then get those other guys involved? Because if he does that and those other guys produce, that makes them, that makes them really, really tough. Yep. And it also takes, the other part of it too, is that a player like him has to exert himself so much throughout a game, and especially losing some of the players that they had last year. And, guys will step in and step up. But, we don't know how that's going to be. But that can wear you down. You get to the end of the game, and what do you have left in the tank, right? So being able to have, dish the ball out on the perimeter and get other guys involved and being able to score and contribute, that gets them going, and it takes some of that pressure off of him and also allows him to put his stamp on that game at the end of games, whereas early in the games, him being patient, being able to do those things will make a big difference for them. So it'll be interesting to see how he does it this year. Billingsley was, he played that point guard position. His deal too is that he's going to have to at some point take on some more of that scoring load, which he's more than capable of doing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so it's going to be interesting this year. That's a team that I'm interested in going out and watching a lot of basketball. So, Coach Cole, you'll probably see me in the gym this year watching you guys play because I'm anxious to see some of that development of those underclassmen and the new and up-and-coming players, but then the development of the guys that you guys are the leaders on your team. So.
And there was another team that was there that I didn't catch necessarily on Saturday, but me and you had the pleasure of seeing them this last week. I've actually seen them quite a bit the last 10 days or so. Southmore's Colton Brammer is really –
Oh, good. I'm glad you brought that up.
He is really taking the next step in his game. I mean, he's – so I've told you Jaden Hopkins, Miles Fleming's in the 26 class. Colton Brammer is right there with those guys as he's one of the top 10 guys in the 26 class right now. I mean, he's doing everything at a high level. He's gotten bigger. He's a solid kid. He's strong. Perimeter game is there. Mid-range game is there. Finishing at the bucket. He's a kid to me that's just really looking good right now, and I know you feel the same way.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like, and I'm glad you brought that up because when I look at point guards in Oklahoma right now, I'm putting him in that class. I mean, the kid's got all the tools. He's patient. He's not ball heavy in that particular situation. When a kid like him that has that kind of a talent and ability, a lot of kids sometimes when they have that talent and ability, they try to do more than they need to. He knows he's smart in terms of his shot selection, getting guys involved, moving the basketball, moving without the basketball. And to your point, he's gotten stronger in the offseason, which you can tell he's been in the weight room.
Yep.
He's grown a little bit, so that's good. It certainly helps his recruiting. The taller you get, the more options you get. I mean, the body is important.
How big do you think he is? He's about 6'1", maybe?
I think
he's there about 6 foot, 6'1"?
Close to, between 6 foot and 6'1".
Okay.
He's in there, and he's gotten a lot stronger too. I mean, a number of players have gotten stronger, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute. But yeah, he is definitely in that tier 1 class in terms of point guards. My thing is being a 2026 player, just continuing to develop year over year, because if he's able to do that and he finds the right fit, I think he's a kid that he's easily going to be playing NCAA basketball.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's just what level.
Yeah, and I think he absolutely will pick up some D2, maybe some MIAA offers this next summer. I think he's definitely a kid for that.
Yep.
And then going past that, being that he is a 26 class, maybe these low majors will circle back around for kids like him and some of the other guys we mentioned. I know Jaden Hopkins already has some interest from some low major D1. So, it's nice to see that maybe is a possibility starting in that class, that guys will maybe – after the transfer portal is always going to be first from now on. That's never going away.
Nope.
At least not anytime soon.
Yep.
So unless they change some rules, that's here to stay. But I think they're definitely circling back around, and you've got some great programs in state in UCO who brings in a ton of high school kids each year. They're one of the few programs left that actually brings in, I don't know, maybe you know how many, they brought in at least 6 kids. And
six freshmen this year.
6 freshmen.
Yep.
I mean, we can go compare that to a lot of the other D2s that brought in maybe 2,
Yep.
3 max.
Yep.
And so that Coach Hoffman is not only doing what he's doing. Are they up to number 3 now?
Yeah, they're up to 3.
Number 3 right now. I mean, in the country.
And those 6 freshmen, I would say virtually all of them are getting playing time as freshmen.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've got Jareth Ingram, you've got Matt Willenborg, you've got significant. All those players are getting good minutes.
Yeah.
As a freshman. So on a number 3 in the country Division II NCAA Division II team. You don't see that very often.
No, they got a good balance of
100%,
guys.
yeah.
Some of their guys, Jaden Wells is playing out of his mind.
Yeah, I mean, the guy throws
Dossie.
It's like Jaden throws the ball up, and it's like you don't even have to open his eyes, and it's usually going in. So
Yeah,
I mean, he's playing at a high level right now.
And we don't want to get too far off, but I feel like some of these kids that we're talking about are definitely going to be in that category come this next spring, summer as AAU.
That next wave of kids that might fill that.
And maybe we don't want to put a cap on them and say, hey, you got no chance at a D. No, that's not the case, especially in that 26 class.
Correct.
It's different for the last few classes where we were going to say pretty much if you're fringe, it's going to be D2 or it's just D1s. We're not coming for most of these these fringe guys.
Unless
right
you
now.
had a star next to your name, you weren't getting a D1 offer. It was very, very, very difficult to get.
That's pretty much what it is still. But I definitely thought that those guys are guys that can step up. And I would probably just say I wanted to throw out. Just even a couple individual kids that I saw
let's hear it.
this week. I thought Zach Brown, the center for Collinsville, was exceptional this weekend. I mean, he is a throwback big man.
Yes.
That maybe doesn't fit the prototype of what everybody's going to, but the dude is productive.
Collinsville.
Yeah, he's productive. The kid, he can shoot. Huge body. I mean, just a banger.
And just manages the boards like he owns them.
Oh, yeah. He was dominant.
Yeah.
He was dominant all weekend long. And Collinsville's going to be a team that can play. He's just a catalyst for them. Yep. But I just saw him going against, I think I want to say I saw him going against, maybe it was Mott or somebody else. He was going against another big guy that's that's already D1. And he did everything and hold his own. I know he's committed to Missouri S&T already, but that's a kid that could have played at a low major level.
Yeah.
But like we said, he's already in a 24 class, and those kids weren't maybe prime objective for the coaches at that level. But he's definitely a kid that's going to be ultra productive right away, in my opinion, because of his size and his skill set. I mean, he's
going to get on the floor as a freshman and contribute significantly.
Absolutely. And he's just a well-rounded kid. I like that kid a lot.
Yeah, he great with his back to the basket. You mentioned that too. That's an art that you don't see much anymore.
Yeah.
Can score with his back to the basket. And I'm telling you, at the NCAA level, the best teams in the country, whether it be Division II or Division I, have to have that guy that can get a hard bucket with his back to the basket, get fouled, put backs, go to the free throw line, knock down at a high percentage, 85% from the free throw line. That type of player, every team in the country, if you want to win national titles or be highly competitive, you've got to have that player.
Absolutely.
You got to have that player, and
absolutely,
he possesses that ability.
Yep, no, absolutely. And I've only got 2 more teams for today that I wanted to hit on, and just some of their guys. Midwest City is going to be a very interesting team to watch. Deshaun Denson was lights out, and Roy Henderson, they were lights out this weekend. I mean, I watched them play in a game against Westmore. I mean, they didn't miss a shot. So, and everybody knows I'm big on Deshaun Denson because I just believe he is a kid that the facial expression never changes. He is the literal term assassin. He hits a shot. When his first shot goes in, get ready because it's going to be an onslaught. He has such a silky way of getting shots off. He's at about 6'2", and he looks taller than that because he's long and thin, and he just does so many things off the dribble nice, catch and shoot nice, just one of the better players in the state. Him and Roy Henderson are explosive. So now we enter Carl Sean Young into the mix.
Yep.
And if Carl Sean can come in there and do some stuff with those guards, distributing the ball. He's already an elite player, elite body, already committed to Oklahoma State. Love seeing the hometown kids stay home. Him and Jeremiah Johnson are going to be good for Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State needs both those kids right now. So I'm just interested to see how Carl Shawn meshes with that team. I'm expecting him to have a huge year, but if they buy in, no one's going to want to see that team because they got some versatility on that perimeter, and things could get scary there with that young squad. So. Definitely like them. And the last one I want to hit on, and I hit him on the season preview, and that was Northwest Classen.
Mm-hmm.
Leslie Rose played really good this weekend. I mean, he controlled. He played point guard for them a lot. Brought the ball down, made great reads.
I love his game.
He's a great player.
I love his game. Anybody that's right-handed and can go left like he does. It almost has, and I don't like make comparisons, but I love the fact when he goes hard left, 2 dribbles, and can knock down a mid-range jumper like he does. You don't see that very much in high school, and he's got that mid-range game. He's athletic. He's good fundamentally. I just really like his game. I've got him starred because he stuck out to me this weekend.
He was one of the standout players for this weekend.
Him.
I thought Leslie was good in both the games that they played.
Yeah.
Just bringing senior leadership. I thought the sophomore Brandon Butler was really good off of some catch and shoot stuff, and he's really quick. So he has this little crossover he does where he creates just enough space to get that shot off because he's about 5'8" ish. He's not super big, but he's super quick. And I thought he was playing off of Leslie Rose. I thought they did good. Kemar Cyrus, I love him. Offensively, he wasn't at his best this weekend, but he did some other things nice. But when all those guards are clicking, Northwest Classen, we talked about them, like they're a team that no one's going to want to see when those guys are on.
Coming back to Midwest City, I think one of the things with them, obviously Carl Shawn being added to the mix, super talented player, playing, Power 5 kid. It's all going to come down to, what that identity is of that team because they've got pieces like we just talked about that are just fantastic. Deshaun Denson, you coming back to it, really good catch and shoot player, has, like you said, you just gave all the superlatives on him. He's really good. Confident, stays within himself, does all the right things. How is Carl Shawn going to come in and still allow these other players to expand their game and be what they're capable of, and then Carl Shawn doing what Carl Shawn does?
Yep.
So that's going to be, that it's great to have all that talent, but a coaching challenge is how do you get the most out of that?
Yep.
And I think that's going to be, with Carl Shawn coming in late. I'm not saying that changes anything in terms of the players making any changes to their game necessarily, but, how does it mesh? How do you get the guys to come together and it be a team and where we're all in it together trying to get to that, to get to state and then, see what happens from there. So that's going to be interesting, but I really like the players that they have. I think they're going to be fun to watch.
No, I definitely think that's the case. I mean, I think that, overall this past weekend was just a great opportunity for us to get to see some more some of the teams that we really needed to see and kind of get a little bit more in depth from what we even talked about in the prior one on the season breakdown. So I thought it was a great weekend, a great event. The scrimmages have been great. Some basketball not so good, some great.
Yeah.
That's scrimmage season. That's what it does. That's why you want to work it out now.
Yep.
The season's a long grind. Teams that start out 1-6 may catch fire, win 9 in a row. Yep. So it's like when you get hot is more important than if you're hot right off the bat.
Yep.
So these teams got a lot to work through, and I think that ultimately to get to that goal ball, it's about peaking at the right time.
Yep.
And I mean, I know that's probably how
Oh, absolutely. It's all about timing. Guys taking on their roles, perfecting their roles, and then staying healthy. Obviously, that's going to be always a part of sports, but when you can do that as a team and then gel, where guys start buying into their roles and recognizing, hey, this is what coach needs from me, so I'm all in on doing those things. If I happen to do other things, those are bonus things, but my focus is on being the best I can at these 3 things. And every game I go out, I focus on those things and give Coach everything that I got. You know what? Coach can put that in the bank, and then he can start adding up the cash flow, and then next thing you know, that turns into wins, right? So it's a simple process, but coaches have to get guys to buy into that, and that's always the challenge as a coach, is getting your guys to buy into something that maybe they want to score more, but maybe you need them doing this more than scoring. You talked about it earlier in the episode here. Getting guys to maybe sacrifice a little bit, and we talked about it last couple episodes with, say, Dayton, best player on that team. Yep. Nothing taken away from any other guys, but he's the stud on that team. In some games, you know what? They don't need him scoring the basketball. No. They need him distributing, and they need him as a leader, or they need him doing this, or they need him doing that. That's what, when we talk about Carlashon, or we talk about, some games, you know what? He may not have to score the basketball because he's got the other guys going. Yep. So it's trying to figure out those things. He's already got his offer. It's already set where he's going. Yep. He doesn't have to worry about that. It's all about if guys like that can say, I want to win, Coach, and then they go out there and they figure out how to, get the W. Yep. So I think that's going to be the interesting thing this year of how all this evolves. But it was a great weekend of basketball last week, going to those scrimmages. You went to one today. Just really, interesting to see how everything evolves and develops.
And I just want to say, how this works is because I get a lot of questions. In the business of media scouting, we put out standout lists, our top players. We come on here and we talk about, we break it down. Because you weren't mentioned on one of these lists or your team doesn't mean that you're not an elite level player or that your team isn't. It just means that during that evaluation, we didn't see your team, and it would have been impossible to have watched every team with our own eyes at that event.
That's a great point.
Because why I say that is to say, there was guys there like DJ Howell from Broken Arrow.
Oh, yeah.
I watched Broken Arrow the week before that.
He looks really good right now.
He looks exceptional. He could be, if I was going to give you my guy that I think is going to end up with a bunch of high major offers after this season. He's at the top of the list, and I talked to a high major coach this weekend and pointed him out and said, that dude is the next guy here. So don't people get it twisted that if we don't talk about them or they're not in a ranking, that doesn't mean that the ranker or the scout doesn't think you're good. It means that they didn't get enough of an evaluation of you at that time. And for what I do, I'm not going to lie and pretend to talk about something that I didn't see.
Correct.
I want to see it with my own two eyes. So
credibility.
So it's just one of these things in this business that I get a lot of questions like, hey, well, why wasn't so-and-so on the standout list? Well, because I didn't watch him that day. But that doesn't mean I haven't seen him and know that he's not a high-caliber player.
Keep playing hard, and we'll see you. Trust me, throughout the season, we're going to get our chance to see a lot of players, and keep putting the work in because it's going to show when the opportunity comes, and we're going to talk about players. Absolutely. If you play well, we're going to get a chance to see you. We're going to talk about you.
Absolutely. So, and I just want to say again, thank you to our sponsors. I know we're going to have some more sponsors coming up, and we really appreciative for all that. We'll be having some on our next episode. We'll
got 3 more coming, so yeah.
So this has been great. Like I said, you better get in while you can. But only thing I could say is, like we always say, please go like us on all of our social medias. Flagrant, 2 on Instagram, Flagrant 2 on Twitter. Follow all the Okie Ball. If you're not following Okie Ball, then you probably don't even like basketball anyway. So let me just throw that out there. Follow our YouTube page for Flagrant 2 as we have these videos posted. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Just keep supporting us. We are seeing some of the most support I've ever seen for anything in this state, basketball regarded. In the 20-something years I've lived here, this podcast has been talked about by everybody, and it's everywhere right now. And I think rightfully so is that it's not to toot our own horn.
Nope.
It's what the state needed.
It's what it needed, and these kids benefit from it, which is what this is all about, right? And it's about the guys getting opportunities and realizing their dreams, and it's fun to do. Go out and talk to people. I mean, it's hard to watch games. You and I talked about this, off the cast here. is you get to talking to so many people because they've got, different things they want to talk about. And, you go out there and they're like, oh, yeah, hey, I like this. What about this? But it was good. It's always good to get out and watch the games and watch these kids play because we've got really good basketball in Oklahoma. And my last thing I'll say before we wrap up is, these Oklahoma college teams recruit the Oklahoma players, guys. You got a lot of talent here. Don't look elsewhere when you got it here. So
hashtag recruit Oklahoma. We always say it.
There you go.
Before and just stay tuned to our socials. We're going to have some college coaches coming through soon. Our guests will be picking up.
Yeah, I got some good ones coming.
We got some good ones coming, man. But thank you, Oklahoma. We appreciate you guys a lot.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Peace.